I've been working as a park ranger in Maine for 9 years. I've dealt with lost hikers, bear attacks, illegal campers, and the occasional drunk tourist who thought climbing Mount Katahdin at night was a good idea. I've seen broken bones, hypothermia cases, and more poison ivy rashes than I can count. But my training hadn't prepared me for what happened that October night in Baxter State Park. The call came at 9:47 p.m. I was finishing my shift at the park ranger station, completing paperwork I'd filled out earlier in the day. The radio crackled to life. Patricia's voice came through, calm, but with a sharpness that made me pause. "Ranger Hartley, we've got a situation." 2 campers reported overdue at Chimney Pond. Friends called it in. Said they were supposed to check in hours ago, but never did. I grabbed the radio. "Copy that. Do we have their last known location?" "Chimney Pond campsite, Site 14. They were registered for 2 nights. Started their hike yesterday morning." I checked the clock. If they'd been out since yesterday and missed their check-in, that was already 24 hours. In October, in Maine, that was a problem. Temperatures dropped fast at night. We were looking at low 30s, maybe high 20s in the higher elevations. "I'm heading out," I said. "Who else is available?" "Ranger Crawford is on his way to the station now." "He'll meet you there." Dale Crawford. Good. He'd been working these woods for 26 years. If anyone knew Baxter State Park, it was him. I gathered my gear. Flashlight, GPS, first aid kit, emergency blanket, flares, rope, and my radio. I threw on my heavy jacket and headed out to the truck. The air was cold and damp. Fog hung low over the trees. I could see my breath. Dale pulled up in his truck a few minutes later. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, with a thick gray beard and permanent squint lines around his eyes from decades of staring into the sun. He stepped out and nodded at me. "Emma," he said. "Patricia filled me in." "Chimney Pond?" "Yeah, couple in their 20s. Jason and Melissa Carter. Registered for Site 14. Dale frowned. "That's a good 3-mile hike from the trailhead. Plenty of places to get turned around if you're not paying attention." "Or injured," I added. He nodded grimly. "Let's move." We drove to the Chimney Pond trailhead in silence. The fog grew thicker as we climbed in elevation. The headlights barely cut through it. The trees pressed in on both sides of the narrow road, their branches black and skeletal. When we reached the trailhead parking lot, there was one car, a silver Honda Civic with Massachusetts plates. I ran the plate through the system, registered to Jason Carter. "They're still here," I said. "Or at least their car is." Dale walked over and looked inside. The back seat had camping gear, a cooler, 2 backpacks. "They left most of their stuff," he said. "Took the essentials, though." Tent, sleeping bags. We geared up and started down the trail. It was just after 10 p.m. The forest was pitch black. Our flashlights bounced along the narrow dirt path. The fog muffled every sound. No wind, no animals, just the crunch of our boots on the trail. The hike to Chimney Pond campsite normally took about an hour and a half. We made good time, moving fast, but careful. Dale knew every turn, every root, every rock. I followed close behind. About halfway in, Dale stopped. "You hear that?" he asked. I stopped and listened. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then, faintly, I caught it. A sound. Not an animal. Not the wind. It sounded like someone calling out. A voice, distant and muffled by the fog. "Hello?" I shouted. "Jason? Melissa?" The sound stopped. We waited, listening hard. Nothing. "Could have been an echo," I said, though I didn't believe it. Dale didn't respond. He just kept walking. We reached Chimney Pond around 11:30 p.m. The campsite sat at the base of a massive granite ridge. In daylight, the view was stunning. At night, it was just a wall of blackness rising up into the fog. Site 14 was at the far end of the loop. We found it easily. There was a tent, a small two-person dome tent set up near the fire ring. The rainfly was loose, flapping slightly in the still air. Dale and I approached slowly. I called out again. "Jason? Melissa? This is the Park Service. We're here to help." No answer. I unzipped the tent and shined my light inside. Empty. The sleeping bags were unrolled. 2 backpacks sat in the corner. A lantern hung from the center loop, but it was off. Everything looked normal, lived in, like they'd just stepped out for a minute. But something felt wrong. Dale crouched down and examined the fire ring. "Fire's cold. Been out for hours." I walked around the perimeter of the site. The ground was soft from recent rain. I found footprints, 2 sets. One larger, one smaller. They led away from the tent toward the trail that looped around the pond. "They went this way," I said. Dale came over and looked at the tracks. He pointed at something I hadn't noticed. A 3rd set of prints. Larger. Deeper. "That's not them," he said quietly. I felt my stomach tighten. "Bear," he shook his head. "Wrong shape. Too narrow." We followed the tracks. They led along the shoreline of Chimney Pond. The water was black and still, reflecting our flashlight beams. The fog hung thick over the surface. The tracks continued for about 50 yards, then stopped abruptly at the water's edge. Dale crouched down and examined the ground. "They went into the water." "In October," I said. "That water's near freezing." "I know." I shined my light across the pond. The beam disappeared into the fog. I couldn't see the other side. "Jason!" I called out. "Melissa!" My voice echoed across the water and faded into nothing. Then, from somewhere out in the fog, we heard it. A voice. "Help!" It was faint, weak, but clear. Dale and I looked at each other. "That came from across the pond," I said. "Yeah," Dale said, his jaw tight. "But there's no trail over there. Just cliffs and dense forest." "Then how'd they get there?" He didn't answer. We started moving around the pond, following the shoreline. The terrain was rough. Wet rocks, exposed roots. The fog made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. As we walked, I heard it again. The voice. But this time it sounded different, closer, and it wasn't calling for help anymore. It was laughing, a low, quiet laugh that made the hair on my neck stand up. I stopped walking. Dale stopped too. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He nodded slowly. We stood there, listening. The fog pressed in around us. The silence was heavy. Suffocating. Then, from behind us, came the sound of footsteps. Not running. Not hurried. Just slow, deliberate steps, crunching through the leaves. I spun around, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. Nothing. Dale drew his bear spray from his belt. I did the same. "Who's there?" Dale called out, his voice firm. No answer. The footsteps stopped. We waited. Then they started again, this time from a different direction, to our left, moving through the trees. "Jason?" I called out. "Is that you?" The footsteps stopped again. Then from the right, they started up once more, circling us. My heart pounded in my chest. I gripped my flashlight tight. "This isn't right," Dale muttered. "We need to get back to the campsite," I said. He nodded. We turned and started retracing our steps. The footsteps followed, always just out of sight, always in the fog. We moved faster, not quite running, but close. When we finally reached the campsite, I felt a rush of relief, but it didn't last long. The tent was gone. Not collapsed. Not damaged. Gone. The fire ring was still there. The backpacks were still there. But the tent had vanished. Dale and I stared at the empty space where it had been. "We saw it," I said, my voice shaking. "We both saw it." "I know," Dale said quietly. That's when we heard the voice again. This time it was right behind us. "Looking for something?" We spun around. Standing at the edge of the campsite, half hidden in the fog, was a figure. Tall. Too tall. Its shape was wrong. The proportions didn't make sense. Dale raised his flashlight and aimed it directly at the figure. The beam hit it, and for a split second I saw its face. I can't describe it. Not fully. But it wasn't human. The figure smiled. Then it stepped backward into the fog and disappeared. Dale grabbed my arm. "We're leaving." Now. We didn't argue. We didn't look back. We ran. We ran down the trail in complete panic. Our flashlights bounced wildly. Branches whipped at our faces. I could hear Dale's heavy breathing behind me. My lungs burned from the cold air. Behind us, I heard the footsteps again. They were faster now, keeping pace. "Don't look back!" Dale shouted. I didn't. We made it about half a mile down the trail before Dale grabbed my shoulder and pulled me to a stop. We ducked behind a massive fallen tree trunk, both of us gasping for air. "Listen," he whispered. I held my breath. The forest was silent. No footstep, no voices, nothing. We stayed crouched there for several minutes, our backs pressed against the rough bark. My hands were shaking. Not from the cold. From fear. Dale pulled out his radio. "Base, this is Crawford. Do you copy?" "Static." He tried again. "Patricia, do you copy? This is Crawford." More static. "We're too deep in," I said. "The ridge is blocking the signal." Dale clipped the radio back to his belt and looked at me. His face was pale, and I'd never seen him look scared before, not in all the years I'd known him. "What was that thing?" I asked. He shook his head. "I don't know." "Dale, you've been in these woods for over 20 years. You must have seen—" "I've never seen anything like that," he cut me off. "Never." We sat in silence for a moment. The fog pressed in around us. I could barely see 10 feet in any direction. "What about Jason and Melissa?" I asked. Dale's expression hardened. "If they encountered that thing—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I thought about the tent, the way it had just vanished, the footprints leading into the freezing water, the voice calling for help that turned into laughter. "We need to keep moving," Dale said. "Get back to the trailhead. Call for backup." I nodded. We stood up slowly, scanning the darkness with our flashlights. Everything looked the same. Trees, fog, shadows. We started walking again, slower this time, more cautious. Every sound made me jump. The snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, my own breathing. We'd been walking for maybe 20 minutes when Dale stopped suddenly. "Emma," he said quietly, "look at the trail." I aimed my flashlight at the ground. The dirt path we'd been following had disappeared. We were standing in thick underbrush. No trail markers. No cleared path. "We got turned around," I said. "No," Dale said, his voice tight. "We didn't. I know this trail. We were on it. And now we're not." I felt panic rising in my chest. Then where are we? Dale pulled out his GPS unit and turned it on. The screen flickered, then went black. He tried again. Same result. Battery was full when we left, he muttered. I pulled out my own GPS. Dead. My flashlight flickered. No, I whispered, smacking the flashlight against my palm. It flickered again, then went out completely. Dale's flashlight was the only light now. The beam seemed weaker, dimmer. This doesn't make sense, I said, my voice shaking. None of this makes sense. Dale grabbed my arm. Stay close to me. We'll navigate by compass. He pulled out his compass. The needle spun wildly, never settling on a direction. Magnetic interference, he said, though he didn't sound convinced. That's when we heard it, the voice again. But this time it wasn't calling for help. It wasn't laughing. It was speaking. Emma. Dale, our names. Clear as day. Coming from somewhere in the fog ahead of us. Emma. Dale. Why are you running? The voice was calm, almost friendly, but there was something wrong with it, something hollow. Dale raised his bear spray. Who are you? Show yourself. Silence. Then from behind us, the voice spoke again. I'm right here. We spun around. Nothing. Over here, the voice said, now to our left. We turned again. Still nothing. The voice laughed. That same low, wet laugh from before. It echoed through the trees, coming from every direction at once. Dale pulled me forward. Move. Now. We pushed through the underbrush, branches tearing at our clothes. Dale's flashlight beam swung wildly. The fog was so thick now I could barely see him, even though he was right in front of me. Dale! I called out. I'm here! Keep moving. The ground beneath us changed. It became softer. Wetter. My boots sank into mud. Wait, I said. Dale, stop. He stopped. We were standing at the edge of water, but it wasn't Chimney Pond. The water stretched out endlessly in front of us, disappearing into the fog. This isn't right, Dale said. There's no body of water this big anywhere near the trail. I looked around, trying to get my bearings. The trees behind us looked different, twisted, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. We need to go back, I said. Back where? Dale asked, his voice cracking. I don't know where we are. That's when I saw something in the water. At first I thought it was a log, but then it moved. It was the tent. Our missing tent. Floating in the water about 20 yards out. How? I started. Dale saw it too. His flashlight beam locked onto it, and then I saw something else. 2 figures, standing in the water next to the tent. Their backs to us. Motionless. Jason? I called out. Melissa? The figures didn't respond. Jason! Melissa! I shouted louder. Slowly, one of the figures turned around. Even from a distance, I could see that something was wrong. The way it moved was jerky, unnatural. Its face came into view in the flashlight beam. It was Jason. Or it had been Jason. His eyes were empty. Black. His mouth hung open, but no sound came out. The second figure turned. Melissa. Same empty eyes, same slack expression. They started walking toward us, through the water. Their movements were slow and mechanical. We need to go, Dale said, backing away. Now. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, staring at those 2 figures wading through the water toward us. Dale grabbed my arm and yanked me backward. Emma! Move! That snapped me out of it. We turned and ran. Behind us, I heard splashing. They were coming after us. We crashed through the undergrowth, Dale pulling me along. His flashlight finally gave out, plunging us into complete darkness. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked, but it turned on. I used the dim light to see a few feet ahead. We ran blindly, branches scratching our faces, roots catching our feet. I tripped and fell hard. Dale pulled me up. "Keep going," he gasped. The splashing sounds were closer now, and there were more footsteps. Not just two. Many. I risked a glance back. In the dim glow of my phone, I saw shapes emerging from the fog. Dozens of them. All walking with that same jerky, mechanical movement. "Dale!" I screamed. He looked back and his face went white. We ran faster. My lungs burned. My legs felt like they were going to give out. Then, ahead in the distance, I saw light. Real light. Not a flashlight. It looked like headlights. "The parking lot!" Dale shouted. We ran toward the light with everything we had left. The footsteps behind us grew louder. Closer. I could hear them breathing now. A wet, rattling sound that echoed through the trees. The light grew brighter. We burst out of the tree line and into the parking lot. Dale's truck was there. So was my Ranger vehicle. And the silver Honda Civic. We ran to Dale's truck. He fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking so badly he dropped them. I spun around, expecting to see those figures emerging from the trees. But the forest was still. Quiet. Nothing came out. Dale finally got the door open. We jumped inside and he locked the doors. He jammed the key into the ignition and started the engine. As we peeled out of the parking lot, I looked back at the tree line. Standing just inside the shadows, barely visible in the darkness, were dozens of figures. Motionless. Watching us leave. And at the front of the group, taller than the rest, was that thing. That figure we'd seen at the campsite. It raised one long arm and waved. We drove in silence back to the ranger station. Dale's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I couldn't stop shaking. When we pulled into the station, Patricia ran out to meet us. Her face was panicked. "Where have you been? You've been gone for 5 hours. I've been trying to reach you on the radio. 5 hours?" I looked at my watch. It was 4:37 a.m. We'd left at 10 p.m. It should have been midnight, maybe 1 a.m. at the latest. 4.5 hours had just disappeared. Dale and I looked at each other. "Did you find them?" Patricia asked. "The campers?" Dale's jaw tightened. "No, we didn't find them." "We need to call the state police," I said, "and close that section of the park." Patricia looked confused. "Close it? Why? What happened out there?" Dale and I didn't answer right away. Because how do you explain what we'd seen? How do you tell someone that reality itself had broken down in those woods? "Just call them," Dale said finally. "Tell them we have a critical situation." Patricia nodded and ran back inside. Dale and I sat in the truck, staring at the dark tree line beyond the parking lot. "We have to go back," I said quietly. "No," Dale said immediately. "Absolutely not. Those people are still out there, Jason and Melissa, and whoever else." "They're not people anymore, Emma," Dale said, his voice hollow. "You saw them. Whatever that thing is, it took them. I thought about their empty eyes, their mechanical movements. What do we tell their families?" I asked. Dale leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. "I don't know." We sat there in silence until the state police arrived an hour later. They searched the park at first light with dogs and a helicopter. They never found Jason and Melissa Carter. They never found their tent. They found the campsite at Chimney Pond, found the backpacks, found the cold fire ring. But no tent, no bodies, no trace. The case was officially listed as missing persons, presumed lost in the wilderness. Dale and I gave our statements. We left out most of what actually happened. We said we'd found the campsite abandoned and lost the trail in the fog. Nobody questioned it. But I think we both knew. Something was still out there, waiting in those woods, and we'd barely escaped. The park stayed open. The official report called it an unfortunate hiking accident. Exposure, disorientation, possible fall into water. The search was scaled back after a week, then called off entirely after 2. Jason and Melissa Carter's families held a memorial service. I didn't go. I couldn't face them. Dale took a month of leave. When he came back, he was different. Quieter. He avoided the Chimney Pond area completely. Whenever someone needed to patrol that section, he'd assign it to someone else. I tried to go back to normal, tried to convince myself that we'd been disoriented, that the fog and darkness had played tricks on us, that there was a logical explanation. But I knew better. 3 weeks after that night, I was working a day shift when Patricia called me on the radio. "Emma, we've got a report of an abandoned campsite at Russell Pond. Can you check it out?" Russell Pond. Different area of the park, but still remote. Still deep in the woods. "Copy that," I said. "Heading there now." The hike to Russell Pond took about 2 hours. It was a clear October afternoon. Sunny. The fall colors were at their peak. Red and gold leaves covered the trail. It should have been beautiful. But I felt uneasy the entire hike. When I reached the campsite, I found exactly what the report had described. A tent, fully set up, gear scattered around, a cooler, backpacks, but no people. The fire ring had cold ashes in it. I crouched down and examined them. At least a day old, maybe 2. I called out, "Hello? This is Park Ranger Hartley. Anyone here?" No answer. I checked the tent. 2 sleeping bags, personal items, a phone sitting on top of one of the backpacks. I picked it up. Dead battery. I searched the area around the campsite, found footprints leading toward the pond. 2 sets. They went down to the water's edge and stopped. My stomach tightened. I radioed Patricia. "I've got another abandoned site. Same pattern. No sign of the campers." "Do you need backup?" she asked. I looked at the dark water of Russell Pond, the tree line beyond it, the shadows. "Yeah," I said. "Send someone." I stayed at the campsite, waiting. The sun was still up, but the shadows were getting longer. I kept my hand on my bear spray. That's when I heard it. Singing. Faint. Coming from somewhere in the trees. A woman's voice. Singing a melody I didn't recognize. "Hello?" I called out. The singing stopped. I waited, listening hard. Then it started again. Closer this time. Still in the trees, but moving. "If you need help, I'm a park ranger. Come out where I can see you." The singing continued. It was getting closer. I could almost make out the words now. I drew my bear spray and backed toward the trail. Every instinct told me to run, but I held my ground. The singing stopped abruptly. Then, from behind me, a voice spoke. "Emma." I spun around. Standing on the trail was a woman. She looked about my age, long brown hair, hiking clothes. She smiled at me. "Emma Hartley," she said. "I've been waiting for you." My blood ran cold. I didn't know this woman. I'd never seen her before. "Who are you?" I demanded. "Don't you remember me?" she asked, still smiling. "You found my campsite." Site 14. Chimney Pond. My heart stopped. "Melissa?" I whispered. She nodded. I wanted to thank you for coming to look for us. Where's Jason? I asked, my voice shaking. He's here, she said. We're all here. She gestured toward the trees behind her. Figures emerged from the shadows. Dozens of them. Men, women, even children, all wearing hiking clothes from different eras. Some looked recent, others looked decades old. They all had the same empty eyes, the same slack expressions. And behind them, towering over the group, was that thing, that tall figure with the wrong proportions. It smiled at me, that same horrible smile. You should have stayed away, Emma, Melissa said. Now you're part of it. The figures started moving toward me, slow, deliberate. I raised my bear spray and fired. The stream hit Melissa directly in the face. She didn't even flinch. I turned and ran. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Many footsteps, all moving in perfect synchronization. I ran down the trail as fast as I could. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But I didn't stop. I could hear them behind me, getting closer. Then, ahead on the trail, I saw someone. Another ranger, running toward me. Help! I screamed. As he got closer, I recognized him. It was Dale. Emma! This way, he shouted. But something was wrong. Dale was supposed to be at the station. He shouldn't be here. I slowed down, suddenly uncertain. Dale stopped about 20 feet from me. Emma, come on! Hurry! I looked at him carefully. His uniform was clean. Too clean for someone who'd just hiked 2 hours into the backcountry. And his eyes were empty. You're not Dale, I said, backing away. The thing wearing Dale's face smiled. Smart girl. I turned and ran off the trail, crashing through the underbrush. Behind me, I heard them following. Not just the figures, the thing itself. I ran blindly, branches whipping my face, roots catching my feet. I had no idea where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. I burst through a line of trees and found myself at a cliff edge. I skidded to a stop, almost going over. Below me was a river, maybe 30 feet down. The water was dark and fast-moving. Behind me, the footsteps were getting closer. I looked at the water, looked back at the trees. The figures emerged from the forest, all of them, walking slowly toward me, Melissa at the front, the fake Dale beside her, and behind them all, that towering thing. There's nowhere left to run, Melissa said. I looked at the water again. It was my only chance. I jumped. The fall seemed to last forever. Then I hit the water hard. The cold shocked my system. The current grabbed me immediately and pulled me downstream. I fought to keep my head above water. The river was rough. Rocks jutted up everywhere. I slammed into one, pain exploding in my ribs. The current carried me for what felt like miles. I couldn't fight it. I just tried to keep breathing. Eventually, the river widened and slowed. I managed to grab onto a branch hanging over the water and pull myself to shore. I lay on the muddy bank, coughing and shivering. My entire body hurt. My uniform was torn. Blood ran down my face from a cut on my forehead. But I was alive. I looked back upstream, expecting to see those figures coming after me. The forest was empty. I pulled out my radio. Miraculously, it still worked. Base, this is Hartley, I gasped. Need immediate extraction. Patricia's voice came through, panicked. Emma? Where are you? We've been trying to reach you for hours. Hours? I looked at my watch. It was 11:47 p.m. I'd left for Russell Pond at 2 p.m. That was almost 10 hours ago. I don't know where I am, I said. I'm at a river. I jumped from a cliff. Stay where you are, Patricia said. We're tracking your radio signal. Help is coming. I sat on the bank, shivering, watching the dark tree line. They came for me an hour later. Dale was with the rescue team. The real Dale, I could tell by his eyes. He wrapped me in a blanket and helped me to the helicopter. "What happened?" he asked. I told him everything. He didn't look surprised, just sad. "It's getting bolder," he said quietly. "Taking more people." "What is it?" I asked. Dale shook his head. "I don't know, but it's been in these woods longer than we have, longer than anyone. I spent 3 days in the hospital. Bruised ribs, mild hypothermia, lacerations. Nothing life-threatening. The official report said I'd fallen while investigating an abandoned campsite. Nobody questioned it. But the Park Service started noticing a pattern. Over the past 5 years, 37 people had gone missing in Baxter State Park. 37. Most were written off as accidents. Hikers who got lost, fell, drowned. But now, people were starting to ask questions. A task force was formed. Federal agents got involved. They searched the park top to bottom. They never found any bodies. Never found any real evidence. But they did find something strange. In several remote areas of the park, they found structures. Makeshift nests built from branches, leaves, and personal items. Clothing, backpacks, camping gear. And in the center of each nest, they found bones. Not animal bones. Human. The park was partially closed. Certain areas were declared off-limits. Signs were posted. Warnings issued. But people still went missing. Just last month, a group of 4 college students vanished near Chimney Pond. Search teams found their campsite, found their gear, but not them. I wanted to go out there, to search, but Dale stopped me. "You can't save them, Emma," he said. "Nobody can. That thing, whatever it is, it owns these woods now." "So we just give up?" I asked. "We survive," Dale said. "That's all we can do." I still work as a ranger, but I don't go into the deep backcountry anymore. I stick to the main trails, the populated areas, the places where that thing doesn't go. Dale retired last year, said he couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't send people into those woods knowing what was waiting for them. I thought about quitting too. But someone has to stay, someone who knows the truth, someone who can warn people. Not that they listen. They never listen. They see the warning signs and ignore them. They think they're experienced. They think they know the woods. They don't. Because there are things in these forests that don't follow the rules. Things older than the trails. Older than the park. Maybe older than the trees themselves. And they're hungry. I still have nightmares about that night. About those empty eyes. About the thing that wore Dale's face. Sometimes, late at night, I hear singing outside my window. That same haunting melody. When I look, nobody's there. But I know it's watching. Waiting. The woods never forget. And neither does what lives inside them. Last week, a new ranger transferred to our station. Young kid, fresh out of training, full of enthusiasm. His name was Marcus. He reminded me of myself 9 years ago. On his 3rd day, he came to me with a request. "I want to do a solo patrol of Chimney Pond," he said. "Really get to know the backcountry." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "No. You're not going there, ever." He looked confused. "But it's part of the job, right? Someone has to patrol those areas." "Not you," I said. "Not anyone. That section stays closed." "But the map shows it's open to experienced rangers." "The map's wrong," I said flatly. He started to argue, but something in my expression stopped him. "There are places in these woods you don't go," I said quietly. Not because they're dangerous, but because they're not ours anymore. They never were. He didn't understand. How could he? But one day, he will. They all do eventually. Because the forest always shows its true face. And when it does, you either run, or you join the others. The ones who sing in the dark. The ones with empty eyes. The ones who wait. I see them sometimes, when I'm patrolling near the restricted areas, standing just inside the tree line, watching. Melissa's always at the front, still wearing her hiking clothes from that night. She waves at me sometimes, and smiles. And I know that one day I'll wave back, because the forest is patient, and it always gets what it wants. Always.